Now we have a very important discussion coming up with Munther Isaac, who is a senior pastor at the Evangelical Lutheran Christmas Church of Bethlehem. He joins me now live from Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. Pastor, good to see you. Now, your impactful Christmas sermon garnered significant global attention. You equated what Israel is doing to the Palestinians in Gaza to genocide. You highlighted that Palestinians, including yourself, are being subjected to racism by Israel, and you also labeled the West as hypocritical. Tell me what prompted you to make these assertions.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a sermon that came from the heart of our pain as Palestinians. I spoke about the reality on the ground, and the reality is very harsh. I don't need to explain what's happening, but it seems some people are turning a blind eye to the tragedy that is taking place right now in Gaza. And on top of the tragedy that is happening, we are appalled by the response of the world and the continuous justification of the killing of our children, the killing of our people. How is the displacement of 1.9 million Palestinians acceptable? How is the word silent about the continuous number of killing? We're troubled by the continuous dehumanization of the Palestinian people. And I had to say it. I had to call things by their name. This is not a time for soft diplomatic language. We have to call things by their name because this war is devastating, and we can't just continue to pretend that it is just a conflict between two sides. We have to call things by their name. And as a person of faith, I feel it's my responsibility. As a person of faith, I feel it's our calling to challenge the conscience of people and to draw their attention to what's happening. So I'm glad that my sermon drew attention, yet I'm still devastated by the fact that this genocide is still taking place.
Now, Pastor, I don't mean to put you on the spot here in any way, but I think it's important for our audience to understand which individual or which entity are you talking about when you say that some people have turned a blind eye to what's happening in Gaza. Who are these people?
No, I'm calling every government, every even church leader, every church that has not yet called for a ceasefire. I'm calling the governments that empowered this war by paying the bill or by providing the political cover and promoting a certain narrative, for example, that this is self-defense or that, this is a war on Hamas. One, clearly, it's a war against all the Palestinians in Gaza. So I don't want to make it as if it was a campaign on a certain individual, country, or government. And I think those who were shocked by my words know that, it's to them. And believe me, people contacted me from everywhere, including politicians, and they know I'm talking about them. So the complicity is appalling, and the fact that it's been 80 days with this tragedy is hard to understand, and the world can't stop it. And we've seen veto decisions. We've seen, as I said, politicians promoting a certain narrative. We've seen, even silencing those who are protesting. Those who heard my word know themselves and know whom I'm addressing it to.
In fact, Pastor, it's been more than 80 days now. Today is the 83rd day since Israel's onslaught on Gaza began. Now, what I'm about to ask you is of paramount importance, especially considering attempts by some to frame Israel's onslaught on Gaza as a religious conflict. In fact, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, tried to justify the killing of Palestinians using a holy book. So, as a pastor, do you perceive this as a religious conflict?
No, this has never been a religious conflict. This is about the colonization of our land by the Zionist movement. And it's totally unacceptable to use the Bible, whether it is to justify the creation of the state of Israel, or to justify the ongoing occupation of our land, or to justify this genocide. It's incomprehensible to me that other Christian leaders are okay with this language. The God we encounter in the Bible is a God of love, a God of who welcomes all. They have turned God into a tribal God, a God who chooses nations over others, who privileges certain people. They speak of language of entitlement. And to me as a pastor, since this is my Bible, we've been saying this is wrong. We can't accept it. I believe, as I said, in a God who welcomes all. And more importantly, when it comes to this conflict, tell me one other conflict in which it is acceptable to use holy text to justify someone's entitlement or someone's position when it comes to who gets the land to solve it. I mean, and the hypocrisy of the Western world. I mean, sorry to put it this way, if it is a Muslim leader who's using the holy text of Islam, the Quran, to justify a certain political position, the Western world will go crazy. But here we have the Israeli prime minister using the Bible, and we have other American politicians as well and church leaders justifying Israel's possession of the land and giving unconditional support to Israel using the Bible, and the world seems okay with it. I can't understand it, even when it is over against the not just the interpretation, but the best interest of Middle Eastern Christians, of Palestinian Christians. These Christians who use this are posing an existential threat to our existence as Palestinian Christians.
Well said. And Pastor, clearly what's happening right now in Gaza is not religious, as Muslims, Christians, and even Jews are being tormented both mentally and physically. In fact, in these very studios, not too long ago, we had a rabbi who stated that this is beyond theology. And it seems to me that it's more of an ethical dilemma about human life. So let me ask you, in your view, what constitutes right and wrong, and how should one navigate through this ethical dilemma?
Well, first, to begin with, yes, definitely it's not a religious conflict again. And right now, I look at what's happening in Gaza, and I repeat what I said last week. Gaza has become the moral conscience of the world. If you're okay with what's happening, there's a problem. There's a problem with your humanity and whatever faith you're promoting. If you continue to justify the killing of children in such a horrific way, there is a problem. We have to humanize any conflict, and we have to look at people as equal. This is really imperative, and you're definitely right. There are many Jewish leaders who are against this war. Not only that, I mean, we cannot continue to equate Zionism with Judaism. I think many Jewish leaders are against this equation between Zionism and Judaism. And when finally we've seen how this war has targeted every Palestinian, including Palestinian Christians in Gaza. Churches have been hit and Palestinian Christians have been killed in this war. Now, what constitutes right and wrong? I mean, we as a human family have to agree on certain parameters. Why is there an international law? When will we respect the international law? And it seems that human rights, which are universally accepted, and the international law, it seems, we were beginning to guess that there is or to think that there is a footnote on it, and that you read down, it's like, with the exception of Palestinians, they don't qualify for these rights. I mean, all we're asking for is the international law to be implemented. And we can't have a religious text trump agreed agreements, or positions, especially in such a very polarized political environment. I mean, are we really suggesting that we have to impose one's religion on others and based on that religion decide who owns the land? I think we can do better as a humanity. And I think we have to respect the fact that Palestinians have been living in this land for generations, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I really hope that one day we can get to a state in which, a reality in which we can share the land, where we acknowledge that we all belong to this land. No one can and should call for an exclusive claim to this land. Sadly, this dream, this vision seems so far away right now as we speak.
Fascinating insights into the topic. Now, Pastor, let me bring your attention to this one latest line that we have just received from the Israeli Defense Forces, which basically they're admitting that their airstrike in Gaza that took place on the eve of Christmas did kill innocent civilians. This is an acknowledgement coming from the Israelis that one of their airstrikes, killed innocent people on Christmas Eve in Gaza. I want to get your thoughts on this.
What's the news?
The news is an acknowledgement.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying it for 83 days that this is indiscriminatory bombing. We've seen it. We've seen the footages. And I continue to be amazed by the fact that the international community as if needs an affirmation from the Israelis and an acknowledgement before they acknowledge it as fact. So if you have Palestinian journalists risking their lives, literally risking their lives, to document the war crimes that are taking place in Gaza, and people see the footage with their own eyes, and they still don't believe it until, somehow an Israeli resource acknowledges it. We've been witnessing this now for 83 days, as you said, and I'm not surprised at all that bombing did not stop. Our friends in Gaza tell us they wish for 2 hours without bombing. They don't sleep. They feel it doesn't stop. A friend of mine in Gaza said, one day in this war is worse than all the previous wars combined. I mean, can you think of that? It's literally hell on earth right now in Gaza, and it's appalling that this has not stopped yet.
In fact, this is a tragedy which is very, very, very difficult to describe in words. And now, Pastor, 83 days, more than 20,000 people killed, more than 9,000 of them are children. More than 85% of the population of Gaza has been displaced. People have been cornered into the south where Israeli bombing is also happening. Let me ask you, how do you think history will remember all of this, especially in the eyes of faith?
I think history should not be merciful on those who are silent or complicit with this genocide, especially given the fact that it's documented. The people of Gaza are filming their own execution, and they've been doing so for 83 days. You've mentioned the numbers. I don't think the numbers actually reflect the reality. I think the world will be horrified when finally people are allowed to go into Gaza and discover the actual scale of this massacre in terms of people who are still under the rubble. And our biggest fear right now is people dying from diseases and famine if this does not stop, especially since Israeli officials have made it clear they're not even close to ending this. And so I repeat my word, as Palestinians, I don't want to hear words of shock and apology after the genocide. You see it, it's happening. You can no longer claim we didn't know. And this is what will make it harder for people. And this is why I repeat, will people recover? Those who are complicit, whether it's government officials, whether it's religious faith leaders, who could stop it, who could have done something and did not, will they recover? How would they live with their conscience? And mark my words, it's coming when the horrors are discovered after this and when people enter and people will express shock. And again, we're not going to accept it. It's there to see. And history should not be merciful on those who were complicit with this genocide. And finally, I think, let's be clear, I think there should be consequences. There should be not just investigations, there should be, people should be held accountable. There should be clear investigations. War crimes must be investigated. And as long as leaders, political leaders, whether Israelis or any other leaders, feel that they are above the law and that they are never held accountable, they will continue to do this. And sadly, we live in a world where it seems the international law does not apply on the superpowers. And innocent people, innocent children will continue to pay the price.
Pastor Munther Isaac, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time. Thank you very much, sir.